welcoming all of you. I appreciate you coming to talk about our team and the upcoming season. I appreciate the effort you guys put in, and we'll do our best to be as fair to you as we can and to everybody. And it's an exciting time of year for us. It's what we love to do, is go in the gym and play basketball, teach basketball, run practice. And after several months here, we finally get to do that. So I'm extremely excited about being able to get into the routine that I do enjoy the most about the job. Our team has had I think an off season that has been productive. They've learned exactly how we want them to work, and they've put in a really good effort in the off season, just to put us in position to practice well. And we have been pleased with our off season efforts. I think a lot of kids have improved physically. I think their games have improved. I think their mental approach certainly has taken a step forward. So that's put us in a position where I think now we have a team that, as we begin practice, I'm excited about working with them. And we know we have a lot of work in front of us, and we need to make lots of progress in lots of areas, but that's what practice is for. And so practice 1 will be in the morning at 10 o'clock, and I look forward to taking that first step with this team.
Can you talk about your veteran backcourt? You have Paris Austin, Kareem South, just how they're looking and kind of what you expect those guys who are in the team this year?
Well, it's I don't think you can call really anyone on our team a veteran, because we have 17 kids that will dress for practice, and all 17 are learning everything for the first time. And Kareem is brand new to Cal and new to this level, although he has the advantage of some collegiate experience. Same with Paris, who's got a couple years under his belt. So they do have some experience at the college level, but no one's a veteran with how this team has to play and how we're going to play. And so it's brand new for all of them, and how quickly they can pick things up, and how well they can execute them is really going to be key to our level of success. But I do think that having a couple guys with 3 years college experience under their belt, certainly will give those two guys some advantages. And I think physically they're both in really good condition. I think they've had very good summers, and I anticipate that they'll get out of the gate, hopefully, in a good way.
How well have those two guys bought into what you're teaching and sending out there, because they're going to be potentially your two leaders?
Well, I don't know if I have anyone on our team who is fighting the process. I think every kid that's with us is really bought into what we're doing. They haven't fought, even though it's been a little bit uncomfortable for them to maybe be pushed as hard as they're being pushed, in conditioning and some of the things. None of them have fought the process. So I think we've had a great buy-in from our players. Leadership will be something that emerges when difficult times come. Anyone can lead a birthday party. I mean, it's all balloons and ice cream. It's when times get tough is when your player leadership really needs to emerge, and we haven't seen any adversity yet. So we'll see who the leaders are when that time does come, because we know that adversity is certainly part of the process. So I don't know if we have a leader right now that I would say this guy's going to be the guy that'll take charge, but obviously those guys with experience should be two prime candidates to fill those roles.
Brought in a handful of guys with international experience in their recruiting class this year. How much does that experience help when they're facing this adversity and having to learn so much at a quick period of time?
Well, I don't know if learning so much as adversity. It's just we just have a brand new team and a new coach, and there'll be new systems on offense, new systems on defense, new terminology, and so they have to learn a new language. There's a lot of things that every player on this team, whether they're international or American, has to go through. I do think the international game is played in a way that will make the transition to the college game easier for those kids. I think it's a style that is I think pretty conducive to allowing kids to come over and be successful. So hopefully that's the case for some of those international kids. But again, we have every player has to learn everything, and And it's not like we're having 3 new players. We've got a whole roster full. So it'll be fun, and we have new coaches too. That's the other part of it. We have new coaches that have to make sure that they're teaching it exactly like we want it taught, and I've been really pleased with that group. So, again, we enter the year very excited about, working with these kids.
Can you talk a little bit about your offensive and defensive philosophies and just the sort of style you expect this team to play on both sides?
Well, we want to make sure that we're hard to play against. I think that defensively we have to be formidable, and we have to be hard to play against. And there's obviously a couple different ways that we need to do that, because some nights you can have matchups where you want to play man-to-man defense, and that's probably the best way to approach that game. There may be some other nights where the matchups aren't as favorable, and we have to be able to play some zone, and so we've got to make sure that we can develop a zone defense that'll give us a chance to get stops. And so, we've got a lot of work to do on that end of the court. We've got to become, a team that's frustrating for people to match up with. So, I think defensively we'd like to have the versatility to play a couple different defenses. On the offensive end, we'd like to play as fast as we can play well. We need to make sure that we are, getting the right guys, the right shots, and I think offensively, as we evolve, part of it will come down to what particular guys on this team have the ability to do. And as we've gone through the fall, I think we're starting to see some guys emerge and see some guys that have some versatility in how they can score it. But putting that package together will take longer than, as it does with any team, it'll take longer to put the offensive package together than it will the defensive piece.
You really are putting a whole new program together, new coaching staff, a lot of new players. What do you enjoy most about the process of kind of starting from the ground up with the program?
Well, it's exhilarating. Just the massive matrix that has to be put together it's really a fascinating project for me, and it's exhilarating to figure out how to exactly put the infrastructure together that can allow us to succeed, to making sure you have the right people in the right seats and the right personalities, and obviously the personnel that goes into putting together a roster and all the things. And so it's a massive undertaking, but it's also one that I'm excited about when I wake up every day. And so what I'm most excited about is trying to put all those pieces together and lay out that map, and fortunately I don't have to do it by myself. I do have a great staff, and couldn't be happier with that group right now.
You mentioned the staff. Could you describe each one of them and what they bring and what you expect from them, what their responsibilities and their strengths are?
Sure. I have Andrew Francis, who's working with our wing players and our perimeter players, and Andrew's obviously a very experienced coach with time at Iowa, and even back to his days at Villanova, and certainly every one of our full-time coaches goes out and recruits, and so they all have that responsibility. They will all have the responsibility of scouting future opponents, and so that's something that all 3 of the coaches will do. But Andrew's, I think, brought a real wisdom and experience level to our staff, which and a personality that I think our players enjoy. Chris Harriman comes to us from the University of New Mexico, and obviously is a native of Australia. First came to the United States as a player, and then worked for Rick Majerus, and obviously had I think a great tenure with Coach Majerus, and he works with our big players, and really has he's got a great energy level and a real experience that I think is very valuable for us, and so he's really done a nice job. And then Marty Wilson, who had been here for less than a year when I came, has obviously head coaching experience, and was a really good guard back as a player, and he's also working with our perimeter players, and so those 3 have complemented each other very well, probably as well as I could have anticipated, and so I'm very excited about the chemistry within our staff. I think to this point it's been an advantage for us.
And what are Trent's duties?
Trent is, I would say he's a jack of all trades at this point. I think he's I think he's, you know, as we get into the season, you know, he's allowed to watch film and to visit with me about what he sees as maybe some trends within the game and our team. He's been an off-the-court mentor to our players about just, what steps they can make in life to be more successful students and more responsible young men. He's been involved with some community things in the Bay Area already, and he's had different young kids at practice or workouts as guests, and he's really doing a lot of things for us, and his expertise and wisdom is something that we value.
Is he allowed to be at practice, and what about game nights?
Yeah, he's allowed to. The only thing he's not allowed to do is to work with or visit with the players about basketball, and he can do everything else, and he can be involved in staff meetings and
So he can observe practice and then
Yeah.
confer with you guys later.
Absolutely, and so his expertise and experience is certainly very important.
And game nights, what are the limits of what he can do there?
It was the same. He's not allowed to visit with players, but they're allowed to be on the bench, but he's. I think that at this point in his life, I want to say he was retired. Was out of the game. Was retired about 3 years. And he's in his nearly mid-60s, and I think has a great perspective to when kids, need an older voice. I think he provides that.
And he can be in your ear on game night.
Yes.
You have a lot of new pieces to this team. What's your sense of how they're all fitting together, and how have the returning players been with incorporating them into the program?
Well, the players have to join the team. The team's not joining the players, and so I think every player has to have that approach that they have to join the group. And to this point, we've had terrific buy-in from every kid on our roster. And obviously, the kids that were here last year know their way around Berkeley, but they don't know exactly how we want to play or how we want to function. So, from that standpoint, no one had an advantage. They all had to make that step essentially together, and we've had tremendous buy-in from them, and they've really been coachable. They've listened, and I know that they're tired of the individual workouts, as every team is. They're ready to go 5-on-5, and they're ready to practice, and quite honestly, I think the coaches are ready for that too.
You've got a lot of multi-positional guys. How are those puzzle pieces fitting together? Do you start to see a potential starting roster emerge from this group, or is it way too early still?
I don't know what you mean by multi-positional guys. I guess you mean versatility within some of these pieces?
Guys that could play 4 or 5, guys like Matt Bradley that could play 2 or 3. It seems like a lot of guys could play a couple positions.
Yeah, I think what you see in the game really is the game's becoming more positionless. Your position's more dictated by who you're matched up with as a defender than it is based upon where you're at offensively. And we do have, I think, some guys, for instance, Matt Bradley, as you mentioned, who can probably play a couple different places. Can he guard both those places? Yes, Matt could. Some guys, I don't know if they might be able to play either place in the front line on offense, but could they defend a center on defense? Maybe not. So a lot of it will be determined based upon how we think we can match up defensively. But we're a long way from a starting lineup.
Sorry to cut you off. Did I cut you off? Or?
Yeah, you did, but that's okay. It probably won't be the first time, but that's okay.
Okay, sorry. I was going to ask about the front court, how that's shaking out with Lars Thiemann, Kwani, Andre Kelly, just how that's shaking out and what you see from that.
Well, and I'll finish the answer to your question. We're a long way from a lineup. We have an idea of what some guys are capable of doing. Do we know exactly how they can incorporate and absorb, techniques, schemes? Can they recognize schemes they're playing against? Can all that be a strength too, or does it create a weakness for certain guys? I don't know. We'll see that when we get to 5-on-5 play. The front line is a group that I think with Lars and Andre and Grant and DJ and even Jacoby, who's I think had a good fall. I mean, there's some options there. I think that there's a level of shooting with our frontline players that we like, and so getting those guys comfortable in how we want to play is going to be important, and I think depth will be something up front that hopefully can be an advantage for this team, because we do have we have a group of frontline players who I think combined together, I think they could be advantageous for us in certain games.
And then just on Jacoby, how is he coming? He had the Achilles injury last year. You said he had the fall. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Well, you know, Jacoby has had two violent injuries, to be honest. He's had two just terrible injuries and two major surgeries. And so the approach that we took back in April with Jacoby was let's take the next 4 or 5 months and just try and get healthy. And let's just focus on physically trying to make sure that we can regain our mobility, our conditioning, and then, you know, as we get healthier and we feel better, let's transition to the court so we can have more and more workouts and then work on your shooting and everything else. And to his credit, he's had which is it's hard to do as an injured athlete. Rehab is one of the harder things to do. The mental grind and the challenges that it provides for you in just your mentality every day is tough. To his credit, he's been very disciplined, very diligent, and he has continued to make progress each week. And I think he's finally to the point where he's in good enough shape to where he can sustain workouts. His mobility is certainly improved. I'm not going to say he's 100%. Because I don't know if he'll ever be 100% of what he once was, but I think he's really made a lot of progress, and his ability to shoot the ball, I think, will impact this team, and he's a very smart defender, and he obviously, I think if he can stay healthy, and hopefully can impact our team.
What's your number one priority, starting with the first practice?
Well, our number one priority is just that we have got to establish just how hard we have to work every day and how we have to function every single minute of every day in order for us to be successful. I think that our players understand that to win at this level takes a massive investment, and we have to make sure that every day is that we're committed to doing the right things the right way, and we have to establish that everyone on our team and really everyone within our program, when they walk in the doors, comes in with their hard hat on, ready to put the work in. And if we do that, those daily efforts will add up. And but that has to be our priority. That becomes, you know, really part of our DNA. That when we show up, there's a level of effort that we're going to give.